Hello, everybody. This is a answer session for the questions that we got back 3 days ago. Jeep, it seems like a week ago. Anyway, it says here it was 3 days ago. So that's surprising. And poor old Evrika and White Shadow sitting there with no wind. It's a beautiful day outside here, out the window. Stunning blue sky, sandy beaches, smooth seas, and not a breath of wind. So I don't know whether we're going to get to the beach. We haven't been there for a while. We might try later this afternoon. Anyway, you can follow the tweets. We just put a gallery of shots up about life on the marina and see what's happening there. And if you haven't subscribed to YouTube, please do. And if you haven't liked the Facebook page, please do. Helps us just show people. We know there's truckloads watching, but we don't have many up there. Anyway, so straight on to the questions. Is there anything else I need to tell you? No, that's it. I'll remember to try and talk a little bit slowly for those that are interested. Okay, John, will Translated 9 have their YB tracker turned on so we can watch their progress towards Punta? And in fact, yes, they will. And that reminds me, we need to turn some off. Every time it pings, it costs money. And the boats on the marina, sometimes when they come in, they're still pinging at 15 minutes. So I've got to check that. But Translated they're still on the tracker. They'll be on the tracker when they're coming, so you can see they want to try and beat Explorer in, but I'm not sure about that now. It'll be a race to the finish. Explorer and Sterner are both doing okay. They've got about 600 miles of headwinds to cope with on the way back, and we're expecting now Evrika and White Shadow to have no wind at all until about 5 o'clock local time this afternoon. So that's still like another 7 hours. They're just going to sit there with nothing. And then there's very light headwinds. So maybe not until first light tomorrow morning before we see them. They've only got 70 miles to go, near enough, and it's going to take them a long time to get here. So if the forecast changes, the wind is everything, then they might get quicker. But if it stays the way windy is sailing right now, we won't see them until very early hours of tomorrow morning. Okay, John, where and roughly when do you think the final prize giving will be? Oh, that could be announced in the next 2 weeks. Okay, we're trying to make that announcement. We'll make that announcement before the restart. That's our plan. So we can't tell you much more than that at the moment. The boats are finishing when they cross the finish line. We're hosted by the Royal Yacht Squadron in Cowes, which is really fantastic. They managed to start for us as well, and then we will be going to Trinity Landing in Cowes there. All the boats will stop there for 48 hours, do all the official things, and then they will head out. The French boats will be bolting back to France. I believe there might be a big collective party in Lorient or something with all the French entrants together to have a bit of fun and create a bit of hoo-ha, media and so on. And others will head back home as well, to Finland and everywhere else around the planet. So that's cool. Olaf, hi, thanks for all the updates and info so far. Who is winning overall in IRC? I can't tell you that because we haven't added it up. We don't announce that officially until all the boats are finished, just out of respect to them. And then we'll add up the 3 legs of IRC. Obviously, Triana won leg 3 in IRC, and each of the classes, I think it was Penjuic has taken out Flyer class, Spirit of Helsinki has taken out Sailor class, and Triana has taken out Adventure class as well, because we're just engraving the plates now for the trophies. Okay. Translated won leg 1 and 2, and Triana has won leg 3. How do you figure out the overall leader, or is it that only done at the end of leg 4? Yeah, well, it's not that hard because the winner is the IRC winner. It's not the line honours. So there's no line honours overall, okay, for the 4 legs. There are simply the first boat home in each leg, that's always celebrated, and usually that's the biggest boat home first, because the bigger the boat, the faster they are theoretically. But IRC is the one which is the prize, because that means that everyone in the fleet, all 13 boats, have a chance of winning in IRC because the handicap levels out the playing field. And that'll be calculated once leg 4 is completely finished, and we'll work it out. We may on that one have an idea as they arrive who it is, so we can be declared as soon as possible. So stand by for that. It's literally, the total corrected elapsed time on the water in IRC for each leg added up, and the one with the shortest amount of time overall is the overall IRC winner. All right. And those that didn't get ranking in one leg are more or less not included in that. They draw the line, and all you get is their time for the 3 legs. So that's how that works. John, when do you think you'll ask us for feedback on the Bayet platform? Now, we just wanted to reshuffle a few things, but yes, I should have put it up here. You can access the Bayet platform. We'll be using that quite a lot in leg 4. We'll be highlighting that pretty much every day just to walk you around it. We will do a tutorial. I had that set up with Lutz, but Lutz has already moved on and couldn't get it done in time. And so we had a discussion with that a couple of days ago, and I think they've changed that. So you can play around with it now, and I'll bring that up again on tonight's or this afternoon's tracker update, and just show people, walk them around it a bit more again. And you're welcome to do that. And then we'll make a live session here on OGR Facebook page, and you can put your questions and comments in the live section as we're doing it. So we can walk it around. You can put your questions in there, and I'll be able to read that, and we can talk about things and look at improving it before the start, because it's quite an involved process, and we had wanted to have that sorted by Auckland. It didn't happen, but we will now have it up for leg 4 of the race, and it's a world first, effectively, a world first, and it's a learning curve for everyone, and we're looking forward to utilising that, because it will make life quite interesting when you get online to go back and look at the history, in terms of what was happening in leg 1, leg 2, or leg 3. It'll have historical weather, which we can't do on the Yellowback tracker, and it has everything on the one console, all of the sound clouds, all of the video clips, all of the photographic posts, everything. You just sit there and hit them, boom, boom, and watch everything. So it's like an entertainment platform. Okay. Okay, Paul, hi. Is the finish line and port confirmed? It is. Yes, it is. I just mentioned that. So the finish line is exactly the same as the start line. The squadron, the Royal Yacht Squadron, were our host for the start, and they are also for the finish. And then we go to Trinity Landing. Each of the boats will be there for 48 hours. So if you'd like to see the boats when they arrive, you need to work out which boats, jump the ferry, come across to Cowes, and you'll get access to them there in Trinity Landing. Thanks for the comments, Paul. Peter Melville, hi Don, was wondering about a scenario. Say a vessel gets into trouble at Point Nemo. How do emergency services crews get to them, or will the sailors, seamen, women be dependent on other vessels in the area to assist? Well, in actual fact, no, there is an overarching group of areas for the entire world. They're rescue responsibility areas under SOLAS, which is safety of life at sea. And all the countries around the world, what I call the bigger countries, civilized countries, countries that have got access to resources, have agreed and signed to take on their own areas of responsibility. And under the SOLAS agreement, they do the very best they can to rescue people in distress, whether it's mariners or aviators or people on land and things like that, free of charge. Okay, there is no cost to anyone being rescued. And that's where the difference may be. If you're in trouble off the coast of America compared to in trouble in maybe a less stronger economy than the American economy, you may not get the Navy involved, you may not get other services involved, but at least there's someone attempting to help you in that area. And that country who may not have access to substantial resources, smaller economy, smaller population or whatever, can obviously call in assistance from other SOLAS signatories. So specifically to answer your question, in the area of Point Nemo, as far as you get from anywhere, that is under Chile, I think it is. I'd have to have a look. I have a map here in my crisis management plan, but I think it's under Chile, and they would be the first point of contact. and start coordinating the rescue. Right next door to them is New Zealand, and New Zealand being a neighbour, and they might work together on assisting depending on what happens. And so there is shipping going around through the Southern Ocean. Okay, there's usually 2 or 3 a day still going along between like New Zealand and Cape Horn, for instance, and they go around Cape Horn. We know that, and we work with the rescue coordination centres, and that's why we have the southern limits. It's not just for ice, it's to keep them up to an area where it is possible for a ship to actually come down and assist if required. And it's often in extremely isolated situations. The country responsible might launch an aircraft, and depending on the situation, has the ability to drop bigger and better life rafts and survival equipment. In the first instance, they usually like getting someone on scene in an aircraft to actually see what's going on and talk to them with VHF radio or whatever. There is a recognised process of these situations, but usually it's a ship. And just recently in another event, which is the Global Solo Challenge, I think it was, there was one isolated case with a guy in a class 40 who had a structural problem. The boat flooded, it didn't sink, they have full flotation, but he floated around for about 4 days before the ship finally got to him to take him off. And floating around in the hull is a lot better than floating around in a life raft, right? You don't want to get into your life raft if you can at all help it. So that was an interesting story, and that would have been coordinated by Chile, to get them out there. But certainly the first point of reference, and you see how our fleet generally stayed pretty close together. It was encouraging to see, because yes, if one of the entrants gets into trouble, your first point of contact in terms of after an EPIRB is set off or something is Rescue Coordination Centre. But secondly, if there's someone close, as an organiser, we get onto them immediately and say, hey, drop everything, head straight there, we've got some people in trouble. And so, yes, you do use the other entrants in the race to assist, and everyone would immediately, and people are later compensated for time and so on, but the safety of life is overshadows everything. And it's written into the notice of race, and it is the law of the sea as well. The only defence you can use to not provide assistance is that if you believe you will put yourself at risk, that's totally acceptable. If it's too hard for you to bash upwind to get there, you've just got to say, so look, I'd love to be there, but we just can't. We're going to damage our boat and put ourselves at risk and so on. But everyone generally drops everything and heads straight there. But if someone was, oh, bugger it, I've got a party to go through, legally they could be in trouble. It is a law of the sea with a fascinating history. If you ever read into it, how that whole thing started hundreds of years ago, it's quite interesting, because ships were sailing past other ships that were sinking with people going to be dying just to get back to port to get their cargo done in time. That was in the clipper ship days, or before that actually. So very interesting stuff. Big answer for a small question. Thanks, Peter. Kaija, hello, Don from Nova Scotia, Canada. We started watching you and your team about a year ago with Kirsten and Abolition Ian. That's in the Golden Globe. Simon, we're headed north from about the same latitude you are at now. Love the retro races. Love your coverage. Oh, thanks. Lots of information. Keep on. Okay, good luck. No question. Thanks, Kaija. Okay. Glad you're enjoying it. We love doing it, our whole team. We're a small team, as you know, but everyone works very hard at times, but it's really satisfying to us to know that people are enjoying it, the entrants are enjoying it. Roland, could you make a summary of the penalty which will be applied in the results of leg 3? Thank you. I think all the penalties are now applied. I'll have a look, but it's all on the leaderboard, and there will be a summary. I think it might be there. I'll have to check with Rob. I forgot about that. We're making a section on the website that lists all the penalties that any boats have got in one site. It's not connected to the leaderboard, but certainly the leaderboard's getting adjusted, so that will happen, and I'll check with Rob today. John, you mentioned some of the boats have already requested permission to send sails out to repair in Punta. Yes, they have. Will the penalties incurred be added to their leg 3 or 4? Leg 4, because this is a situation where they finished leg 3, they're here, they're now preparing for leg 4, and if they decide they want to send a sail into a sail anchor, it is a 12-hour penalty to do that, and that's applied for leg 4. Maiden requested permission to send a sail to a sailmaker, which won't be penalised because they're just applying a new sponsor logo. Okay, and we considered that and we thought, well, it's not really repair, and so they've got free permission to send that spinnaker into the sailmaker to get the new sponsor name put on it, but they're not allowed to do any repairs to the sail. So that's fine, and good luck to them. Everyone likes sponsors. And they do a great job. Maiden girls are down there having a go. Oh, one thing, here's breaking news. It was, no, it doesn't matter. Nothing to do with Maiden. Something else, we'll keep that for later. Richard, in view of the structural damage experienced by some of the boats, most notably Translated, will you be reviewing the specification survey requirements or boats entering the next OGR? Well, the question, short answer there is no. The requirements we have now are really quite strong for all of the boats to pass the structural requirements. Now, talking to Marco from Translated 9, who was on board, he was describing what was happening with the boat, over the weeks preceding that, and how hard they really were driving the boat very hard. The other thing that happened during the course of the repairs, and you may have seen the comments if you've been following it, a few people popped up and said, oh, that was a known problem back in the Whitbread days for the early Swan 65s. And so we've all done a bit of research since then and found that it actually was. And in fact, when Translated 9 started working on the repairs and grinding out the inside, they found previous evidence of a previous repair. And then more reading pops up, and we found references to various Swan 65s that had issues with the rudder skeg, which most owners now with the Swan 65 have got two things going for them. They've probably done something to address that over the preceding 30 years or so. And secondly, they're not driving the boats as hard as what we are in the OGR. So what has happened here is we've got a known issue for Swan 65s from those earlier ones. And so we've increased our knowledge base. That'll be passed to all the surveyors, okay? But the bottom line is the surveyor does a complete comprehensive survey on everything that's happening, and he'll be alerted to the fact that some of the Swan 65s in the previous Whitbreads had exactly the same problem. Cracking on the top, just in either side of the rudder skeg where the rudder's loading up, and there's quite strong loads when the mizzen's up as well, and driving heavy downwind and things. There's a lot of helm action and so on. So it's just a case of everyone's learned a bit from that, and that knowledge is passed on. But when you get a survey's a survey, so that's it. But we are increasing knowledge. And I'll tell you a story about Swan 57s. This one's an amazing one. The keels on the first Swan 57s all started falling off, okay? I think it was the first 12 or so. I forget the exact number. You'd have to look in the archive for SNS Norda Swan. But yeah, the keels were seriously falling off. It was a huge problem in the day. And of course, then there was a massive recall, and all the keels everything was strengthened and redone and all those sorts of things. I don't think one's ever fallen off and, been a disaster on the boat, but serious cracks and serious problems. It was the end of the relationship between Norda Swan and S&S. That was the last boat that Sparksman and Stevens designed, because Sparksman and Stevens blamed bad building practices and not following the plans by Norda Swan. Norda Swan said it was bad design by Sparksman and Stevens, and that argument still exists today. No one's ever resolved who was actually at fault, but it was a big problem. So, I was on the hunt for a Swan 57 for years. I thought, if I could find the right one, could be cool, because I love the boat. And ironically, when we found the boat, we got the best one you could ever imagine, because it had had two previous keel reviews in its history. Because we are hull number 3. In fact, had 3. There was the original factory keel rebuild. Then about 15 years later or something, there was another full assessment of the keel and blah, blah, blah. And then in 2000, about 3-4 years ago, the whole keel on Explorer was dropped again, and everything completely rebuilt. It was like €100,000 refit, including dropping the keel, redoing all the structural members inside the hull, relaminating the hull, redoing all the component engineering. They're not backing washers, they're like backing cups so that they don't distort and all that stuff. Massive certification of the keel structure and the engineering, and then completely glassed over, so there's no keel hull joint. And when our surveyor saw this, he couldn't believe it. He said it was like just bulletproof. It was one of the best that he'd ever seen. In fact, he was our surveyor, who's an ex-Whitbread sailor, by the way, and he went over exploring. And he was stunned. He said he'd never seen a boat like it. It was in such good condition. So we were happy with all that. So these things happen, and you build a knowledge base on the previous history. So we don't have to worry about our keel. But if you're buying a Swan 57, make sure you follow the history back of the keels. But they were all done anyway. As I say, I cannot recollect any stories of a keel actually falling off. But it was So now we know about the skegs on the Swan 65. Now where are we here? Surveys for the boats and next OGR. Are we starting to see the limitations of GRP? No, not at all. GRP is pretty cool. That's a stress point, and I was gobsmacked because I've been involved in boat building a long time. Okay, and we built, I built boat building for a while. We built 24 54 footers, right? 24 54 foot yachts for around the world racing and lots of stuff. So I understand composites and how it all works and stuff. The laminate is sheared all the way through. Right, so that's what happens when the water goes through. It wasn't tracking it; actually sheared. It was, Marco was quite correct. It could have been if they got caught in a big storm, one more session. If they would have had to slow right down and not do the rudder a lot, but it could have been serious. But now it'll be completely fixed and done deal, and the boat will be back to normal again, and everything's fine. So HGRP is fine. This was a structural issue, and now they're alerted to that one. It should never happen again. Touch wood. John, did you get the extra 12-hour penalty for maiden resolved? Did it affect their rankings? Yes, it did affect their ranking, and it's been applied. That was for a registered sale repair in Auckland. So any updates on merchandise for sale? When we get to March the 5th, we'll know what bulkhead plates you've got. If you haven't seen one of those before, if you haven't seen one, I'll show you one. Stand by. There we go. Boom. This is the bulkhead plate. I'll bring it up again. These are what all of the leg 3, any of the leg. This one's sterner, South Africa. You can probably read that. Adventure class leg 3, right? These are the what they get for completing the really heavy metal. Blah blah blah. All the gear on it. It's got the logos, the official logos, and so on. They're quite cool. So they get a bulkhead plate for everyone they finish, and we did extras. So that any of the crew that want them, or a circumnavigating crew, get one as well. They get a special one. And then we've done extras for the entrance. If they want to buy some to give to sponsors and any of the leg crew that wanted one, they could buy one. And so there's sure to be some left over that aren't purchased. And when we've got that, we'll be telling people if they want to buy one, they can. And collector's items can never be made again. The molds and the dies have all been destroyed. They're like the ultimate OGR collector's item. So once we've got that, we will be working out. It comes by email. We'll have batches, and there'll be batches of like 2 hats, 2 t-shirts. We can sell that. We're not selling 2 hats. It costs you like €30 or something to post it around the world. So you got it. It'll be minimum, 2 t-shirts, 2 hats, and there'll be other things as well. And we'll do that when we get back to. That'll be sorted when we get back to Les Sables-d'Olonne in France, which is where our office is. And they'll be dispatched from about the 15th of March. And we'll be publicising that after March the 5th restart here. So stand by for that, and there will be opportunities. So, and we don't have a shop. It's been a total nightmare trying to coordinate a shop. There's so many legal things now associated with running an online shop and all the various international aspects. It's just too hard. So, but we will be organised for the next race. Sorry about that. Grant, who thought up those deck-scaring gangplanks? Oh, yeah. If I owned a boat, those things would not come near me. Deck-scaring gangplanks. That's the paracels. It's always a challenge when you're in med-style mooring. Most boats in the med will have a gangway. We actually have one for Explorer, and we've got a special mount there to put it on. It goes across. You see them in the med everywhere. They have carbon fibre ones, timber ones, whatever. And here on the wall, the club has made up a series of timber ones, and there's some others as well. So they're happy to provide them, but it is a problem, and it's a problem now. Boats need to decide whether they want to go bow in stern in. You don't want to get too close to the wall because you can't go any closer than 2 meters to the wall. Otherwise, you might damage your rudders and so on. So the paracels are the only way in and out, and it's not a floating marina, but that's the way it's always been. I had the same berth when I was there in 1990 in the BOC, and in the 90s with the Whitbread races, it's exactly what's there, and it seems to work fine. So we haven't dropped anyone yet, and even if they did, the water's quite mild. So, okay, I think that's it. So thank you for following on with this. I've got the questions right here. So I'll just see if there is anyone up for this. Nigel, hi Nigel. Kathleen, checking in from Mississippi. G'day. When is Don going to get a new keyboard that has working cap button? This is my new computer. I just started this morning to try and load everything in. Everything needs all the same passwords. And it's just a nightmare, but I'm working on it. So hopefully in the next number of days, this will become my new computer, which is a real pain because even the keyboard is bigger. And I find when I'm talking on it, because the spacing is wider, I'm hitting 2 buttons at the same time because you just know. I don't actually type like that. I type like this, boom, boom, boom. But it's amazing how you get used to something. So change. People hate change. Yes. Hi, Elizabeth. Oh, you're back in your Ushuaia. Okay. Hope that was fun. Quick trip to Antarctica. Good afternoon from Plymouth. Guy Paul, Simon. Great. Okay. Thanks for that. And we'll see you later today for the tracker update. And you can see him drifting around. See you later on. Bye-bye.